You are tuned into the Dr. Tyna Show with Dr. Tyna Moore. For more, visit drtyna.com. On this episode of the Dr. Tyna Show, you are in for a real treat. I got to sit down with Sal Di Stefano. You may know him better as Mind Pump Sal of the Mind Pump Media megalith of podcasts and courses and programs. Those guys are just beasts at churning out amazing content and amazing education for the general public. Sal is a published author, podcast host, father, and one of the most trusted and respected names in fitness, and truly one of the smartest guys that I know in the entire fitness industry. He brings science and strength training together like no one I've ever seen. If you have not yet started strength training, you will be motivated to do so after this episode. And you can find a whole litany of courses and programs to support you over at mindpumpmedia.com. I truly have grown to love all the guys over at Mind Pump in the last year. They are like big brothers to me, and I am grateful to be in their circle at this point. And I am so happy that Sal came on the show and I get to introduce all of you to him. If you do not yet know Mind Pump, if you do know Mind Pump, you know how much these guys are beloved, and you're going to absolutely dig this episode. So let's jump in. Welcome, Sal, to the Dr. Tyna Show. I am so excited to have you here today. This has been a long time coming, and I'm such a fan of yours, and I've been on your show twice now, so I'm so glad to invite you onto mine.
Thank you so much. We love you. We absolutely love what you do, how you communicate, and in person, you're even better. So I appreciate this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I think we're going to have such a fun talk because I have an agenda I have not yet told you about, and I know that you're going to be up for it. So will you introduce yourself first to the audience? Because I know you are the man that needs no introduction, but I want to hear your story. Like, how did you come to be? How did Mind Pump come to be? How did this all start?
Yeah, no, I've been a professional in the fitness space for almost 30 years now. I started as a kid, 18 years old. I started working out at 14, fell in love with it right away. And as soon as I turned 18, I walked into the local 24-hour fitness gym and applied to become a personal trainer, got hired, and immediately just absolutely loved it right out the gates. Like that first month, I was the top sales in the gym, became a fitness manager within 4 months. So now I have a staff. By the time I was 19, I was managing gyms and grand opening them for 24-hour fitness. Left the company at the age of 21, started my own gym with a partner of mine, sold that, went back to 24-hour fitness for a short stint, and then left and then opened my own wellness studio. Now, the reason why I left the big box gym industry was I saw the kind of the writing on the wall. I remember the first time I realized what the big gym model was all about. It really kind of crushed me. It hurt me when I realized that if everybody that had a membership showed up and actually worked out, they wouldn't be able to service all the members. And then it dawned on me that the model was to sell as many memberships as possible and actually not have people come in. So, and you see that now, it's much more obvious now. The pricing has gone down because they realize that they could be more effective in that way. With really low pricing, get people to pay. It's too cheap to cancel. I still have access, but I won't go. And it broke my heart once I saw that, and I couldn't stay for too much longer afterwards. So I left and opened up my own wellness studio. And the idea was to offer really multiple services in the context of health and wellness. Now, at the time, I was definitely your kind of personal trainer, meathead. I understood macros, I understood calories, and I understood strength training, but that was it. And I did those pretty well, but I didn't understand functional medicine for sure. I didn't understand hormone health. I didn't understand food intolerances and the value of quality of food or sleep or meditation or anything like that. I just understood exercise, and I understood diet from a macros and calorie perspective. But I did, thankfully, and this is in hindsight, I did see that there was, at least from a market perspective, value in just different modalities. And so what I tried to do was bring people together that could really look at health from different angles. And so I had an acupuncturist in there. So we had, some Eastern medicine. I had a physical therapist who was also, at the time, learning functional medicine. And this was a long time ago. So functional medicine was very difficult to kind of find somebody who practiced this back in those days. I had a massage therapist who understood body work. And then we had other trainers in there, and it was just this great environment. And I learned so much from the people around me just through osmosis. I would see the value that they provided, the people that came into our studio and my clients, and I didn't understand it, but I could see that it was helping and working, and it opened my mind to a lot of different things. And it really kind of it really shaped the voice that people hear now on the podcast. And I'd had so many discussions and debates with the people in there over their methods. And, I remember hearing the term leaky gut syndrome for the first time, food intolerances for the first time. I remember the acupuncturist explaining, the meridians to me, and it made no sense to me. I was very Western, kind of science-based. Funny story about that. I remember she did acupuncture on me for the first time, and she said, she did her test, and she said, you have an imbalance between yang and yin energy. I said, okay, well, what's that mean? She says, yang energy is the heat, it's the aggressive energy. But of course, I'm hearing this, I'm like, cool, that's what I want. And she's like, no, it's not good. She's like, that's why you're noticing some of these other symptoms. She said, do you want a mild treatment or a really aggressive treatment? And I, being a bit arrogant, I'm like, give me the most aggressive treatment you can give me. And she says, okay, make sure you take the rest of the day off. I'm like, sure. And I had like 5 clients to train, but yeah, no problem. And so she did this, she, put the needles in and did her thing. And 45 minutes later, it literally felt like I took 5 Valium. Like, it got hit so hard, I couldn't keep my eyes open. And I was like, all right, what did she do to me? And I remember discussing the effects with one of my clients who was a surgeon. And he said, I wonder if the way that they explain, the meridians is kind of what we see in medicine, where you get things like referred pain, like something hurts over here, but it's because, like your left, like the classic one is my left arm hurts. Oh, it's my heart. And he goes, the nervous system kind of works that way. And I said, oh, I wonder if they're just using different ways of explaining things that have been observed. And it's lasted for so long. And so it's got to be some truth in this. And so it really opened my mind. And so that whole process, and I did that for almost 20 years, was just a learning process. And I learned quite a bit about how to be effective with my clients, how to communicate nutrition and exercise in ways that kept people consistent. I dealt with my own personal health issues during that process, which in hindsight was a gift, because I had to knock some sense into me at the time. And during that process, Doug, who is now our producer, hired me. He got referred to me by a chiropractor, and I started training him. And within a few months, he said, hey, I know some internet marketing. If you ever want to create a product or something, I could help you sell it online. And I didn't have any ideas at the time, but he planted that seed. About a month later, I came up with the first workout program that we still sell here through Mind Pump, called MAPS Metabolic. And him and I put together some marketing materials. First time I'd ever been on camera. So I'm like talking about my program. He filmed me, did the whole thing. And at that time, I remember hearing about this guy named Adam. So Adam is my co-host. And Adam came up in the fitness industry in the same company that I did. We'd never worked together, never really met, except for maybe at a large kickoff meeting, maybe in passing. But the strange thing was, at least 4 or 5 times, random people would come up to me and say, you got to meet this guy, Adam. You guys need to work together. And the same thing would happen to him. So I just remembered this guy. I connected with him on Facebook. And at that time, he'd left the fitness industry. He actually started some of the first medical marijuana dispensaries here in California. Interesting side note. But I reached out to him and I said, hey, I put together some marketing material for this workout program that I put together. People keep telling me I got to work with you. We've talked a little bit online. I think you're real honest. I'd love your honest opinion. He said, yeah, shoot it over. And I sent it to him. We got on the phone and he said, let's meet in person. And so I went over to his house. That's when I met Justin. And we had a 4-hour conversation. And it was just, it was sparks. It was exciting. And we had the same ideas about the direction of the fitness industry and how disappointed we were and how we wanted to see it moving in another way, and how the truth is just not communicated effectively, and how many lies permeate the space, and how much damage the fitness industry is doing to people's health. And so we decided to start a podcast. And we chose podcast because it's long form. You know this better than anybody. You can't communicate health and fitness properly on Instagram or pictures with captions. It requires a conversation. When I would train people, it was a conversation. It was coaching. I have to work through this with you, and it takes time. And podcasts are long form, and it would allow us to really explain things in the right way. And also, the barrier to enter was low. We didn't have to sell a product, so we didn't. We could just say what we wanted, tell the truth. Which in the beginning, no sponsor would ever want to work with us because we would talk so terribly about the industry. And that's it. We did that, and it took off very quickly. I sold my gym, and we all started doing it full time. That was almost 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and today we reach probably close to we get close to 10 million downloads and views a month. We've reached people all over the place, and it's been an incredible, absolute blessing. 3 guys on a podcast and video with no media experience, but lots of training experience, and it's been a lot of fun. So that's the story.
I love this. Well, and a lot of heart. You guys have huge hearts that beam out of your chests energetically. When I look at people's vitality and I don't want to say aura, but it's like it's a vital sign, their vitality. And the other day when I was at your gym before we recorded, I was playing on the bar, hanging from the bar, and you guys came in from outside and the light hit all 3 of you. I told you this. It was like that moment in Monsters, Inc. where the heroes show up and like the light, the big, it's just like 3 meatheads with the light behind them and these big hearts. But you guys, I always joke, I don't joke. This is how I describe you. You guys are the smartest, most well-rounded meatheads I've ever met.
Thank
so
you.
I love it. that's a compliment, the meathead part.
I appreciate that. Look, we are trainers at heart. And we all train people. One thing I love about coaches and trainers, those are my favorite people. And we often do courses, and I'll go speak to trainers. When I ask people to tell me why they became coaches and trainers, it's never to make money. It's not a career somebody chooses to become wealthy or make a lot of. It's always driven by some passion or some desire to help people. And that's what I love so much about it. Now, can you make a career as a coach and trainer? You can. It's hard. But that was us for 2 decades. And so we did that first. When we got on the podcast, this was like another way to do what we've always done. So that's what you hear. So when you hear us communicate, it's like we're trainers. We work with people. We trained people for a long time. It's not like social media. Let's make this thing happen, get these followers. This is how we communicate health and fitness, and we've done this forever. So it's funny when I hear that, and then we'll hear people say things like, "You guys are so authentic." We used to hear that all the time when we first started, and we're like, "What is that? What do you mean?"
Right.
Then,
what does that mean?
Yeah, and then we would meet other, social media people, and then we go, "Oh, okay, now I see what they mean."
Yeah. I hear that a lot too. And I'm like, I don't know how else to be, I don't know how to not wear my heart on my sleeve and tell the truth. So
right.
at any cost, right? Like that's the whole point of this. You said something a few minutes ago. You said the damage that the fitness industry is doing to people. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. And consumers play a role in this too, but markets, and I'll get to where the question, it sounds like I'm not, but I will, but markets are excellent. I love markets because they allow people to compete. They allow for innovation. And they bring us, it's the best method we've ever used to date to progress ourselves in many different ways. But the downside of markets is they give us what we want, not necessarily what we need. And the fitness industry sells the wrong way. It sells based off of sex appeal, appearance, aesthetics, and then it promises quick results, 30 days, take this pill, do this thing. And it also tells you you're not inadequate, you're not attractive, you're gross, you're ugly, and if you just looked better, every problem would be solved. And so it hasn't. Now, the reason why this makes me so upset, besides the fact that it's all wrong, is that it has the answers. The fitness and health industry have the answers to solve our chronic health issues. They're there. It's just what is getting airtime and what is being sold is not that. And so the challenge is, can I sell the right message and the right idea better than they can sell the wrong message and the wrong idea. And that's not easy because they're saying you lose 30 pounds in 30 days. And I'm saying it's going to probably take a year. And there's some fundamental changes in your behaviors that have to happen. And there's a lot of internal work. And, their idea is like, the way they sell it is like easy. So I have to outsell them in an effective way. But yeah, are you kidding me? Like 90% of the stuff you'll read from the fitness industry is wrong. Most of the workouts that they promote are terrible. Most of the diets are not great. They're fad based. They don't focus on the big problem. The big problem is not, can we get people to lose weight, for example? That's not the problem. The problem is, can we get people to keep it off?
Yes.
Millions of people lose weight every year. That's not an issue. It's that 90% of them, and I would venture to say it's probably higher than that, this is the data, by the way, it's not my opinion, gain it back within a very short period of time. And we're playing this game of lose gain, causing more and worse and worse problems until eventually what happens to most people is they quit. I've tried this. I did that so many times. I'm done. I don't want to even try anymore. I'm not going to work out anymore. I've done that. I've tried that. I've tried watching my diet. And then we get people to stop forever. So I'm trying to change that. We've been trying to change that and kind of fix those problems and counter those crappy messages, which are everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. And again, you look at fitness people who get all the followers. You know who it is that gets all the attention? It's the attractive beast mode. I'm sexy. Look at my butt. Look at my whatever, my abs. Look at my workout. I beat the crap out of myself, type of stuff. This is what you need to do to be fit and healthy. You need to, kill yourself. Food is fuel. It's nothing else. No, it's not. Food is not just fuel. Anybody knows that. We do so many things with food. We celebrate with food. We connect with food. It's like, so we're just lying. We're not really painting the complete picture. And then what we're doing is we're not communicating the absolute most important thing, which is that if and you know this, if I were to take and list all the benefits of a fit and healthy lifestyle, which is it's a massive list of a sphere of benefits, and then I were to rank them in terms of importance in the context of quality of life, okay, like real quality of life. Appearance doesn't make the top 10. It just doesn't make the top 10. Yet what do we sell? Appearance. Now, what's the draw? Why is that a bad thing? I'll tell you why. As a trainer, it took me a long time to figure this out. When I would have a client and I wanted to really teach them to become consistent, I would have to point out all the other benefits that they're noticing so that they could start to see them themselves. Because you know what they would focus on? The mirror and the scale. The mirror and the scale, mirror and scale. So I'd ask them things like, well, how's your sleep? Oh, it's weird that you asked me. Oh my God, my sleep's been really good. How's that back pain? You know what? It's gone. How's your energy? Really weird. I used to drink 2 cups of coffee. Now I only have 1 cup of coffee. How about your mood? How's your digestion? You notice any changes with your skin? What about your relationships? And then they would just like, oh my God, you're right. You know what this reminds me of? Have you ever seen that? I love bringing this up because it illustrates it so well. You ever seen that? It's like a psychological test. I'm going to give away, so spoiler alert, you're going to get the answer here. But there's a group of people, and they're passing a basketball between each other, and you have to count how many times the ball is being passed, and that's the assignment. Count how many times the ball is being passed. So you're watching it and you're counting, and at the end of it, the doctor or whoever comes on and says, "Okay, did you guys count the ball?" And you go, "Yeah." And they say, "Now, did you see the gorilla walking through the group?" And you go, "No." Then they rewind the video, and there's literally a man in a gorilla suit that walks through but you don't see it because what you're focused on is the ball being passed.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you sell appearance and the scale. You miss all these other incredible benefits and values, so you don't get a complete picture of what health and fitness can do for you. So it's no wonder the relationship that people develop with it is one that is dysfunctional, and it's one that just they can't maintain.
Well, and they want often, or they've been led to believe these short-term gains are possible, and that I hear this all the time from people. They'll say, "I've been strength training for 3 months and nothing's changed." Yeah. So talk about that a little bit.
First of all, I'm sure something's changed, but what they're probably referring to is the scale. In 3 months, you've gotten stronger. In 3 months, you've gotten more stable. In 3 months, you've got greater ranges of motion, mobility. That's what happens in the first 90 days, for sure, as long as you do it appropriately. But what's probably not happened is the scale has moved in a big way. I used to tell people, I used to use this analogy to kind of illustrate this when I would sell memberships, manage gyms. People would talk about the scale, and I'd say, we could cut your leg off if you want to lose a quick 12 pounds. And they'd laugh, and I'd say, well, the scale it's only telling you mass. It's not telling you what it's made up of. It also doesn't tell you how you feel. In fact, oftentimes the scale dictates how we feel because of what the scale says, when in reality, it shouldn't be that way. And then I used to have this trainer that worked for me, this young female trainer. She was like 5'2", and she was very fit, lean. And I'd have her come in the office, and I'd ask the person to guess her body weight. And I'd say, if you can guess her body weight within 15 pounds, I'll give you a free membership. And everybody would be off by like 25, 30 pounds. They'd say she looked like she's 100 pounds, 90 pounds. She weighed like 135 pounds. And they'd be blown away. And I'd say, she's lean. She's got muscle, and muscle is dense. It takes up almost maybe 3/4 of the space that body fat does. Plus, it doesn't look the same. It looks nice. It's not just sitting on your belly. So, if I snap my fingers and made you lose 15 pounds of body fat and gain 15 pounds of muscle, you would look radically different, and everybody would think you lost a lot of weight. So, in fact, ask me how many times I weighed my clients towards the back half of my career when I got really good.
And probably none.
Never.
I never weighed patients ever. No. I never made a patient step on a scale ever.
No, I had gotten sick of this. I had gotten sick of seeing people get stronger, more energy, get leaner, and they're like excited about it. Oh my God, I feel so good. My clothes are fitting different. I feel great. And then they'd weigh themselves on the scale, and it only went down 3 pounds, and then their mood was destroyed.
Oh, totally destroyed. Yeah, it's devastating. It's like such a deeply ingrained psychological mind fuck.
Completely. So it just needs to be communicated differently. That's what we try to do. And now 10 years later, I think some of the messaging is getting out. But, I'm here to tell you, there's really only one way to be able to do this consistently, besides becoming a fitness fanatic and working in the industry yourself. And that is, this is something that if you do a good job, you'll do for the rest of your life. You have to develop a good, healthy relationship with this. It can't be a stress. It can't be something that makes you feel bad. It can't be something that you only do when you feel motivated. It has to be a relationship that you develop with this, and also realize that this fitness and the food you eat can change. It can change based off of the context of your life, and it's supposed to. It's supposed to improve the quality of your life regardless of the context. That's the relationship you want with this. And when you can get to that place and you can do it, you'll never want to stop. And then you do it for the rest of your life, right? I've never had to convince somebody to do this when they want to.
Well, it becomes maintenance for life. It's there's so many scenarios that I've had in the past decade. I've been truly committed to strength training for the past decade consistently. And there's been so many scenarios where there was either about to be, there could have been a very significant injury, or I was able to recover from something very quickly because I had muscle mass. And I'm not a big gal. Like I've been buffer. I've had more muscle mass than I have now. I'm not really going for that. I have such a chronic pain syndrome in my day to day that I really am just going for pain reduction, good sleep, good libido, cognition. I mean, there's a superpower in having strength that people who don't have strength don't appreciate or understand. And I see this often. I was just talking to my friends this morning, and we can get into this in a minute. I literally won't. And I think I talked about this on your show too. I just won't go see a doctor if they're out of shape. Yeah. I want them to have that sixth sense. It's like a superpower. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I agree with you 100%. You talk about strength training, here's another place that the industry's done an absolute disservice. It's shifted quite a bit, so give credit where it's due. But this is especially true for women. They've been lied to about strength training in particular. Strength training is the most valuable form of exercise that the average person can do for longevity, mobility, health, hormone health, and aesthetics. Okay, and aesthetics. And there's a few different reasons why, but one of the main reasons why is of all the forms of exercise that you can do, and I'm gonna, by the way, preface this by saying all exercise and all activity done appropriately is valuable. So I want to be clear. So people, I don't want to discourage anybody. If you really enjoy the thing that you're doing and you're doing it appropriately, don't stop because of what I'm about to say, because the thing you do and you do right is the best thing that you could do if you don't want to do anything else. Okay. So in other words, someone asks me what's the best form of exercise, the first question I ask is, well, what do you like the most? That's always where I'm going to start. But if you're somewhat impartial and you're like, look, I just want to do something to improve my health, my quality of life, nothing isn't even in the same universe as strength training. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the time you need to invest in it for returns is the smallest. It requires the least amount of time to elicit the most amount of change. It's the best investment, if you will. If you want to put $100 in an investment and get back the most amount of money, it's strength training. Not much needs to be done at all. In fact, if the average person strength trained twice a week for 45 minutes for the rest of their life and did it properly, they would reap tremendous, tremendous benefits for the rest of their life. And I can't say that for all forms of exercise. And it's primarily because strength training elicits adaptations that are extremely protective, and they're also somewhat sticky. And what I mean by that is when you build muscle, you whatever the amount of work is that is required for you to build muscle, a significantly less amount of work is required to keep that muscle. And there's lots of data on this. And the numbers vary between 1/9 to 1/3 of what they refer to as the training volume that was required to build that muscle is required to keep it. So that means if you're working out 3 days a week and you gain 10 pounds of muscle and you just want to keep it, once a week will probably do that. Okay. No other form of exercise really does that. Here's the second part that's amazing. There's something called muscle memory that's very specific to hypertrophy, which is muscle growth. When you build muscle, it requires a certain amount of work and consistency, and it's a slow process. But once you build it, if you lose it, building it back is significantly easier. It's so much easier to build muscle back once you've built it the first time. And there's these genetic changes that happen. It probably has to do with the stem cells and these epigenetic changes that happen in muscle, where your body, once it has that adaptation of muscle strength and growth, primes itself to build it back again if it ever loses it. So if you've ever had a cast on a limb before, you know what happens. You take it off, the muscle's gone, and then it comes back real fast. You're like, oh, that's cool. That's muscle memory. So although no results are permanent, think of the average person. They're probably going to stop at some point, miss some days, miss a month. Oh, I can't work out as much, but you're getting all these incredible benefits. And then here's my favorite part. No form of exercise positively affects the metabolic rate. And when I refer to positive, I mean speeds up the metabolism. In the context of the modern world, you want a metabolism that burns more calories. If this was 50,000 years ago, probably not, right? You want one that's thrifty. You want a metabolism that's super efficient. But if you live in a modern society and you're surrounded by food and it's hyper palatable and it's easily accessible, a faster metabolism is an incredible safeguard, right? So a fast metabolism affords me the ability to get away with eating more food or even eating some junk food. Now, it doesn't correct for all of the damage that, quote unquote, junk food can create. But if you're in a calorie deficit, the data on this is remarkable. And I caution, others communicating this, or even just, be wary about what I'm about to say here, because it's not as cut and dry. Because sometimes when I say this, I think people take the ball and run with it. But when you look at the data, if you're hitting your essential nutrients and you're in a calorie deficit, a large percentage, majority of the negative effects that come from junk food are erased simply because you're in a calorie deficit. Now, there's people that I hate that communicate this in a terrible way, like these scientists that go, I'm going to eat McDonald's and lose 30 pounds only and watch my blood, markers improve. And I hate that because it doesn't paint the full picture, because if you just ate McDonald's, good luck trying to be in a calorie deficit. Like, those foods are designed to make you overeat, and you're going to. And there's other things that we can't necessarily, that they don't necessarily test in traditional blood tests. But nonetheless, faster metabolism is an incredible safeguard. The most effective way to speed up your metabolism is to simply build muscle. You have more active tissue that is expensive to maintain and to operate, and you have a larger storage capacity for stored carbohydrates. You want to talk about insulin sensitivity? If you want to make your body more sensitive to insulin, the fastest way possible, build some muscle. There's studies on obese individuals who lose no weight, and all they do is build a little muscle, and you see these significant improvements in insulin sensitivity. And then, not to go off on a tangent, but when we look at type 2 diabetes, we look at cardiovascular disease, yes, a significant percentage, a majority of them are obese. But what they don't talk about is a significant minority of them are not overweight or obese, and to the tune of 15%, 20%. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's millions of people. So millions of people are getting type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease, and they're not overweight. What's happening? They're under-muscled.
Yep, they're under-muscled.
They're under-muscled. That's the silent epidemic that nobody's talking about. So strength training does all this for you, and it's in its adaptation. It's not in the calories burned while you do that. See, other forms of exercise, a lot of the value is in the movement itself, which there's value there, but strength training is like, do it properly and then you're done, and then the adaptations, which stay with you, are what give you this value.
And there's such significant value in just contracting muscle, just actually using it. It's, people don't understand, this is the one organ system that we can play with.
Yes.
Other organ systems are sort of reliant on nutrient status and on stress levels and on all different, oxidation, inflammation, insulin signaling, hormone signaling. Muscle, we can actually manipulate. And we can build it, and we can build these reservoirs of resilience. And it's just non-negotiable. Like, it's really, I am met with so many women who don't want to do it, or they don't like it. And I'm like, I literally don't care if you don't like it. Like, you have to first off hire somebody who helps you like it. But I literally don't care. If you have any intention of aging well, aging appropriately, looking good while you do it, you're going to need muscle. You're also probably going to need some hormones and some other things that I also think are non-negotiable. But the muscle part is like, and it doesn't have to be expensive, right? Like, this is something, just even, I'm not as big of a fan of body weight as I am of picking up heavy shit and putting it back down, but there's still utility in that as well. And simply just squeezing the muscles itself is going to have profound impacts on our inflammation, our insulin, our metabolic health.
Yeah. So there's two points that I want to make on that. Number one, resistance training, for it to be effective, should be appropriate. So what I mean by that is, if you're just getting started, it doesn't take much to get the ball rolling. If I take somebody who's sedentary, desk job, doesn't do anything, body weight squats, we will see significant strength gains in that individual. In fact, there was a study that showed 30-second isometric contractions, like 2 days a week, which is like, you're not even doing anything, you're just squeezing, increased strength by, I think it was like 20-something% significantly. So the body adapts very quickly to strength training, but you got to do it appropriately. What you don't want to do is go above and beyond your body's ability to adapt. And I want to say that because the messaging is like, beat yourself up. No. It's an adaptation like anything, right? So if you're doing nothing, something will get things going, and doing more than your body can adapt to will not get you there faster. It'll actually slow you down and possibly set you back. The second thing is in reference to hormones. Okay. So, and this is your expertise. So I'd love to hear your input on this, but when it comes to, quote unquote, balancing your hormones, or maybe making the hormones that you have more effective in their roles, when you send the signal to build muscle and you feed your body appropriately, one of the adaptations that you can observe is the body will organize its hormones in a way to build muscle. Your body can start to organize its hormones in ways to build muscle, just like it organizes its hormones in a way to get you store body fat and lose muscle, right? So if you're stressed out all the time, eating garbage, not moving, your body is like, too much stress. Let's make fat storage a priority. Let's get rid of this expensive tissue and lose muscle. Well, if you strength train properly and feed yourself properly, it is going to, one of the signals it sends is, let's take these hormones and let's make them more youthful. So you see better growth hormone, you see an upregulation of androgen receptors. So, your testosterone has to attach to an androgen receptor. So now whatever testosterone you have becomes like more testosterone. In fact, increasing androgen receptor density is even more profound than just raising your testosterone. Insulin sensitivity improves. You tend to see this balancing of estrogen and progesterone in women through strength training. All the functional medicine practitioners I worked with through all the 2 decades as a trainer, they all said, "Oh yeah, when my patients properly strength training, I see positive impacts on the hormones like nothing else in the context of other forms of exercise. It just seems to have this much more positive effect." So I also like to sell it that way. It's like, you're on this path of making my hormones more youthful, or getting my testosterone more effective, and you want to utilize exercise as a way to do so. You want to pick the most effective form, make it strength training.
Absolutely. Because if if a woman needs estrogen, and I firmly believe that every aging female needs estrogen as it wanes for longevity and to offset a whole litany of disease processes, estrogen applied to a lean, healthy body with good muscle mass is an entirely different ballgame than estrogen applied to the obesogenic, phenotype with lots of inflammation and metabolic dysfunction, and things go down the wrong pathway. So I love that word. I love how you said that it structures the hormones. Like, that's a really nice way to put it that people can understand, that I hadn't heard before, because it's really true. Like, your sex hormone binding globulin, which is the protein that will bind up all your free estrogen and your free testosterone, will be elevated in the insulin resistant state and in the metabolically dysfunctional individual. And so they might be making adequate hormone, but they can't use it, and it can't hit the receptor because the receptors are all screwbally, and the sex hormone binding globulin's binding the free hormone. So it's not even able to be used. So that's why taking a total testosterone reading is kind of a moot point, because it's like, well, what's free for the body to use? And then on the other side of things, the pathways things choose to go down, I really think are contingent on our metabolic health. And there's not as much research around that. And we're starting to see some literature come out around adiposity and its impact on how hormones behave in the body. But it's a real shit show when you start throwing estrogen at someone who's past menopause, so that now they're walking into that 10-year window. So hormones are, just the quick version here is, hormones are considered quite safe 10 years post menopause. After that, things get iffy. But I think that 10 years is really arbitrary according to how healthy and metabolically optimized this individual is, right? And so applying hormones to a woman at that time is a real crapshoot. And then on this side of things, going through perimenopause and menopause just really doesn't have to suck if you go into it well trained. And I'm seeing, this is the side ball I was going to throw at you. There's a big movement right now with a lot of the hormone savvy docs out there who are allopathically trained, and they're just coming around to the fact that we need to be strength training. And they all started strength training in their 50s. And I think that's great. And I'm really glad this movement is happening. But some of us have been over here for decades, and I know you're in this boat trying to get this message out, and we're being dismissed for being meatheads or for being, I was telling my girlfriend this morning, I was kind of on a rant because I've been reading all of these menopause books that have come out lately, and I really do respect a lot of these influencers, but they're like, I discovered strength training in my 50s, and I discovered that we need to use HRT after decades in practice. And I'm like, yo, what the F took you so long? That's great, but it's a little late, to be honest. Like, applying hormones and trying to build muscle later it works. You can do it, but such a better idea to start early. And my complaint was, I have been applying to speak at conferences for as long as I can tell you, and I have been turned away repeatedly, to deep frustration on my part, because they're like, well, this isn't right for our audience because, none of our doctor audience strength trains, and how do they get their patients to do it? And there's all these hurdles. And I'm like, dude, this is non-negotiable. And they're like, well, do the exercise you like and just have them walk and do yoga. And I'm like, oh my gosh, for F's sake, I have been trying so hard to get this message out and met with such a wall of of frustration. And I think it's because I don't have the right letters behind my name. I think that might have something to do with it. But man, I'm glad it's catching on, but really a little too late.
It is. And it's so good that it's catching on. But, the culture has been lied to about the benefits of strength training. The examples of strength training that we had were these extreme bodies that really don't represent any of the average person. I mean, look, if you just bar the last maybe 15 or 20 years, because now we have like studies are coming out and it's great. But when I was training people, like, go find me a study on strength training and longevity. You couldn't find one. Now why is that? Well, it's easy to get a rat to run on a treadmill, right? It's hard to get them to pump iron. So I think that's part of it, right? Part of it was animal studies. It's easy to get them to run in circles, and we see the value and the benefits. And then a big part of it was the media. The first examples of strength training that we saw in popular media were those Muscle Beach movies of the 60s. And how did they depict people that lifted weights? Like these big, self-absorbed, morons, right? These big, doofuses or whatever. And then you had Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he was charismatic. But again, it's the pro bodybuilding space. Any example of fitness that we saw was typically some kind of cardiovascular type workout. It wasn't strength training. Now, athletics, they adopted strength training sooner because, well, sports are objective. You win or you don't, right? So you had football was one of the first sports, and all of a sudden the guys that lifted were, smashing all the other guys. So next thing you know, football takes it. Next was baseball. Now, like, you can't find a single athletic event or sport that doesn't incorporate strength training. All incorporate strength training because strength is the foundational physical pursuit. It's actually the one that contributes to the rest. In other words, if right now everybody got 10% stronger, they would also automatically get more mobility, more stamina, more endurance. Okay, that's not true for the rest. If I gave everybody more endurance, they wouldn't see more strength necessarily. So strength is the foundational physical pursuit that contributes to all the rest. And so the sports saw this, but still pop culture, all we saw were big meathead bodybuilders. Most people don't want to look like them, which, by the way, I'm just going to be very clear. It's just so people don't, like, they hear that and they're like, yeah, I don't want to look like that, or especially women. I don't want to look like, like Sal talking on this podcast. Okay, first of all, there is a wide range of genetic response to any kind of, athletic stimulus. But let's just talk about strength training. The ability to build muscle sits on a spectrum, okay? Way over here, you have like pro bodybuilders and athletes. Way over here, you have like muscle wasting genetic diseases. 99.9% of us are in the middle, okay? Now, to illustrate what I'm talking about, the people way over here, the super responders, they're about as common as people who are 7 feet tall. So think right now, besides going to an NBA game, when was the last time you saw someone that was 7 feet tall? Like, you remember it because it was so like crazy. Like, oh yeah, one time at the airport, I saw this guy who was 7 feet. Okay. That's how rare those genetics are. And if you have those, because you're probably the buffest person always, everywhere, without ever having to work out, right? Then you add on top of that performance enhancing drugs. So, and now those are the people that for a long time were representing strength training. So we looked at these female bodybuilders and these male, and we're like, I don't want to look like that. You won't. You will not.
You won't.
You could try as hard as you want. You could even take all the steroids you want, and you wouldn't look like them because that's just so rare. What would end up happening for everybody watching and listening to this is if you devoted, it's a sizable percentage of your time to strength training, and you ate like a bodybuilder, and you were like, I'm going to bodybuild, and you did it for 5 years. Do you know what you would look like? A very fit person. You would just look like a very fit person. You would not look like a bodybuilder. So this fear, get it out of your head. It isn't going to happen. But that was a representation. So especially for women, they were like, no, I don't want to look like that. And then the gym industry and the fitness industry they just promoted it. And how did they promote it? They made pink dumbbells that weighed 2 pounds. I remember the first gym that I ran in, that I worked in, had a women's only area. This is back when gyms would do that.
I remember.
And I remember the gym, we had to close the gym for a holiday. And I remember walking in there, right? I'm like, what's in this women's only area? And it was the same equipment that we had in the open area. The difference was the upholstery was pink. And I remember being like, this is ridiculous. Like, why are we doing this? So it was just a bunch of lies, don't build muscle, tone muscle. Like, that's, by the way, that's a made up marketing term. I mean, tone is a word, but it doesn't mean the feeling of muscles that feel more solid. That's because you're building them. They either build or they shrink. They don't tone. They build or they shrink. And that's what you're looking for. So if you want muscles that feel solid, you just build them. That's all you got to do.
Right. You make them dense.
That's it. So so there's just lots of lies, but thankfully now I work out in a commercial gym. I see women lifting weights. I see them deadlifting and squatting and pressing. I never saw that before. So it's moving in the right direction for sure.
It is. It just it's for those of us who've been over there trying to, beat the drum. The last 10 years, I've been going to medical conferences when they would accept my application and put me on their stages. And I would get met with such a pushback from the audience as well. So even if I could get the message out, I was getting the pushback from the doctors like, well, can't you just do Pilates? And I still get that all the time on my social media. Isn't Pilates the same? And I'm like, no, it's not the same. I love Pilates. I use it for rehab. I don't use it for, this is not my strength training strategy. Those are very different, distinct exercise types. So
do you mind if I touch on that real quick?
Yeah, please.
So the body adapts very specifically, meaning what the signal that you send to your body aims to adapt to that signal in a very specific way, because the body doesn't waste resources. Now, when I say signal, I mean a stress. So the body adapts to stresses, like going outside in the sun, right? The sun, to a certain extent, stresses your body. So your body adapts by darkening your skin. So now, if you go back out in the sun, it doesn't cause the same stress, right? Okay. So if I send a signal to my body that says improve stamina, improve endurance, that's what I'm going to get. If I say improve strength, that's what I'm going to get. Pilates is not strength training. Yoga is not strength training. Running with weights in my hands is not strength training. Lifting weights and doing a circuit and not resting is not strength training. That's building endurance and stamina. If you want to build strength, if you want all of the benefits that we're talking about, that I know you talk about, the improved insulin sensitivity, the faster metabolism, then the aesthetic effects of the sculpt and the shape, and just the stability that comes from being stronger, and the bone density and all that stuff, you need to send a signal that says, I need strength. What does that look like? It looks like 8 reps, 10 reps, 5 reps, and then I rest for 2 or 3 minutes, and then I do it again. What you train is what you get. So I have to train to get stronger. So my strength training needs to look like that. It doesn't, there's like no rest periods. So because you see this all the time. Oh, I lift weights. Oh, really? What is it? Oh, it's this group class. And it's like, no. That's cardio with weights. They're just holding weights, but they're doing, and you're not gonna get nearly the same result. You have to train like a strength athlete. You lift the weight, you do some reps, you rest, you sit down, you train the metabolic pathways that contribute to strength. You train ATP, not glycolysis or glycogen necessarily. Your goal is to get the first 3 years of strength training, if you really want to get the best results, should be almost primarily focused on getting stronger. Now, after that, of course, you can't get stronger forever. If that were the case, I'd be able to bench press a truck. but for the first 3 years or so, that's it. Just get stronger. Try to see if you can lift more or do more reps. Do it appropriately. Do it safely. Feed yourself appropriately. But that's it. And as you get stronger, the results will follow. And if you're getting stronger, you're moving in the right direction.
Amen. That's so well put. And the refeeding and the rest, that's the magic, right? Talk a little bit more about how important it is to take these breaks between sets.
Yes. So the energetic pathway that you're training is one that is used for what they would call explosive contractions, or power or strength. So, and this is like super oversimplification, but the fast burning source of energy that gives us strength and power is ATP, and ATP fuels all your cells. But it produces strong, hard muscle contractions, but it burns out quickly. Once it burns out, then you start moving into a slower form of energy known as glycogen. Now that's more of your stamina and endurance. If you want to train strength, you focus on ATP, you stop when it gets to glycogen. So that's like I said, 8 reps, 10 reps, 12 reps, maybe 20 reps. But beyond that, then it starts to become endurance training. But definitely as low as 1 rep, 2 reps, 3. Powerlifters are training ATP as well. If you train that energy source, you're telling the muscle, we need to be stronger. We need muscle fibers that are thicker. We need maybe more muscle fibers. Some people debate this, but hyperplasia, increasing the amount of muscle fibers that you actually have, which I believe definitely happens over long periods of time. That's what ends up happening. You end up stressing the muscle fibers that have the potential for growth, the fast twitch muscle fibers. Again, this is oversimplification, but that's what you train. If I'm doing 1,000 reps, I'm not resting in between sets, then my body says we need more endurance and stamina, which it doesn't. You don't need big muscles for endurance and stamina. In fact, larger muscles can sometimes be counterproductive to lots of endurance and stamina, in the sense that if you look at the data on exercise and diet and weight loss, if the form of exercise is cardio, you tend to see a significant amount of muscle loss with the diet. So you'll see 10 pounds on the scales gone, 4 pounds came from lean body mass. If it's strength training, you see typically no muscle loss. And if they do it right, you'll probably see some muscle gain with fat loss. Now, why is that? Think again in terms of adaptations. If I'm telling my body I need a lot of endurance and I'm simultaneously doing an activity that burns a lot of energy while I'm doing it, my body's going to try and get better at that. And there's 2 things that it does. One is it improves its endurance. The second is it improves its energy efficiency. That sounds like a good thing, but what that literally means is a slower metabolism. My body starts to pare muscle down so that I don't burn as many calories doing that same activity. So I get more endurance and I require less energy to do it. I become better at it, right? I become better at long distance running. By the way, you want to see a nice picture of strength training versus endurance training, what it looks like? Look at a sprinter versus a marathon runner. Sprinting is the strength training of running. And of course, marathon running is just, that kind of steady state, low intensity, just get stamina. They look very different. Sprinter, muscular, fast metabolism. Marathon runner, skinny, low muscle, very efficient with calories.
You make such a good point, and I want to share this. I know I've said this on my show in times past, but just go to the gym and look at where the people are, and go look around and look at the people you want to look like, and then go do what they're doing. It's pretty easy. Because the people over by the free weights usually have the physiques that are appealing to me, and the people slugging it out on the treadmill are either, like you said, that endurance athlete, sort of super lean, cachexic, sarcopenic look, which no thank you, they look old AF, or they're still overweight and they're just look miserable on the treadmill, and I'm like, no, this is not for me.
We used to call them, anybody in the gym industry knows what I'm talking about, we used to call them cardio bunnies.
Yeah, exactly.
They would come in, they would just do cardio every day, and they would look the same and nothing would change. And what was happening is you're literally teaching your body to be more efficient with calories, which this is an adaptation, but you don't want a slower metabolism. I mean, unless you want that, that's cool. If you're going to go in the desert and try and survive off low calories, and maybe that's a good thing. But even then I'd make some arguments, but you want a faster metabolism. Well, that's what strength training provides. By the way, you mentioned something that they look old. It's funny. There was a study that I just talked about on the podcast. They compared different forms of exercise and skin health and appearance. Yeah. Only strength training contributed to the collagen matrices building, and other forms of exercise did not. They all have a positive effect on health when done properly, but strength training builds your skin. Now, The question is why? Well, why is that? Because strength training is pro-protein synthesis. It is anabolic. That's what strength training does. It tells the body to add new tissue. So if I train my biceps, I get this very localized muscle building, protein synthesis effect in my biceps, but I also get this systemic signal throughout the whole body. And there's lots of data to support this. There's the famous studies where they'll take people and they'll incapacitate one arm, and then they'll have half the people train the other arm and the other half of people do nothing. The people who train the arm that was not incapacitated lose less muscle in the arm that was incapacitated. There's this systemic protein synthesis signal that's being sent. Well, guess what your skin is made out of, right? Proteins made out of, it's collagen. So, and we notice this in gyms. Like I'd see the people, like you said, lifting weights, like they look younger.
Yeah.
They don't look weathered or as old. Well, yeah, it seems that the strength training kind of contributes to that. And it is a youthful hormone, promoting anti-aging form of exercise more so than almost any other. I mean, pick one physical metric to predict all-cause mortality better than a grip strength test. You can't.
Just muscle mass in general should be a vital sign. And it's been talked about in the medical industry. That should be a vital sign. Everybody's muscle mass should be assessed. Everybody should get a DEXA scan, in my opinion. Like everybody should get their liver scan for fatty liver, and everybody should get a DEXA scan to see what their muscle mass is, because that will I will tell you without a doubt who's going to survive anything based on their muscle mass. There's so much more wiggle room walking into any acute or chronic illness or accident or trauma or anything if you've got muscle mass on your body.
You brought up hormones and how they can be, like estrogen can be great, or depending on the context of the person, unhealthy acts very different than somebody who's healthy. I'd say the same thing with testosterone and all the hormones. When your body is anabolic and trying to adapt and strengthen, we can even look at food this way, right? You hear a lot about, for example, mTOR and longevity, right? mTOR, mammalian target rapamycin, right? And they say, oh, if we lower mTOR, we'll reduce cancer rates. Okay. One of the best anti-cancer form of exercise that exists is strength training. It leads to the largest reduction in all forms of cancer. I think a reduction of 25%, something like that. In fact, if you look at the data, this is funny. I looked this up. I looked at the mortality of pro bodybuilders, which are not healthy. I remember these are extreme athletes. They take lots of drugs. They overfeed themselves. They beat themselves up. Like this is not a healthy, no extreme athlete is healthy. Okay. But I looked at their mortality. They have lower cancer rates than the average person just because of the amount of muscle that they carry. So where am I going with this? Well, mTOR in the context of building muscle, in the context of stimulating mTOR with high protein, great when you're building muscle. It's longevity. Having lots of mTOR when I'm sedentary, probably not a good thing.
Exactly.
Probably not a good thing. So that context that strength training creates, that pro muscle tissue, we don't need body fat as much, mobility, strength. Well, now you're utilizing these different things and the context completely changes. mTOR is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. They show this in athletic populations. Having high testosterone, really high testosterone might be inflammatory if you're super sedentary and you do nothing. If you're using it, oh my God, it's like super healthy to have high testosterone. So, and strength training does that, and you don't need to do a lot. 2 days a week for the average person, you're 90% of the way there.
And it's not even about mass, it's about strength.
Yes.
And that's really important because I live in a farming community, and these old geezers around here are thin. You've seen my husband. He's thin. He's not a buff guy, but they are strong, and their ability to harness the tension in their body. And I was watching him dig a hole yesterday with a shovel, and it is something to behold. I should have filmed it and put it on Instagram. He is so strong, but he's a lean guy. And these guys I saw this guy the other day walking down the road, and I asked my husband, I'm like, he had that sort of Mick Jagger build, and great mobility. And he's like, oh, that's Ernie. He's like 95. These guys just don't stop, and they have been getting up, getting their circadian rhythm set with the daylight and the nighttime. And they sleep at night when you're supposed to, like a grown up, and they eat good food that they grew, but they are strong because they're out there building strength every single day with hay bales and whatever, livestock. I don't know what they're doing, but bunch of tough old
You're
geezers.
you're you're right, and I'm so glad you said it's a strength, because when they look at muscle mass, that's a proxy for strength, right? It's like, okay, more muscle mass typically means more strength, but really it's the strength that's important. And here's something a lot of people don't realize: strength isn't just the ability of a muscle fiber to contract. It's also largely due to the central nervous system and its health and its ability to communicate to these muscles and fire. In fact, these initial strength gains that you get when you first start working out are largely due to a healthier, more vibrant, more powerful central nervous system. Is that important as you get older? Oh, that's everything. If your
It's
central
everything.
nerve, it's everything. If you have a central nervous system that can work the muscles like a symphony and stabilize the body, and it knows how to fire with good force in a safe way, that's going to give you incredible longevity and mobility. And strength training does that. Strength training allows you, and now all forms of exercise, as you get better at them, you get this central nervous system adaptation. But when I'm cycling, I'm cycling. When I'm running, I'm running. Strength training, I am working in different planes of motion. I'm rotating, I'm lunging, I'm squatting, I'm rowing, I'm pressing, I'm turning. I am training, I am working proprioceptive ability, and I am training my central nervous system in very complete ways, like no other form of exercise can provide.
It's so true. And it translates into everything. And just look at a group of geriatric folks getting up from a table after a meal. All of them will grab the table and stabilize themselves
Yeah.
and take a minute before everything sort of fires together so that they feel like they can let go of the table and ambulate out. And then watching them walk is 9 times out of 10 just a disaster waiting to happen. When people strength train, I remember my mom telling me this. This is before I got into strength training. My mom was working with a personal trainer, and she said, and she's got a bad hip that she's had surgery on several times. And she said, I just can get up from a table and walk away now. And that's been the best part. And I'm like, that's it, right? We want to be able to get up and down off the floor to play with our grandkids or our dogs. We want to be able to, I got my parents a puppy the same time I got my puppy, same litter. And these guys are little, they're fast and they are very, very rambunctious. And I kept telling my parents, I'm like, God, I hope he doesn't take your feet out from underneath you, And my mom's like, oh, I'm fine. My mom keeps it real you should see her deadlift a barrel full of yard debris through the yard. It's amazing.
Awesome.
And so these are the patterns that we need in our day to day. And it's not just about injury reduction. It's literally about being able to fire quickly. And this translates into our immune system's health. That's what people don't understand. Like, this is how our immune system responds to invaders, is because we have a healthy nervous system. We have a healthy nervous system because we have a healthy musculoskeletal system.
Yes. Yeah. Towards the end of my career, I started specializing in training people in advanced age. I didn't know that this would happen, but I started training a lot of doctors towards the end, and then they started referring their patients to me. And this became my favorite group of people to train for many different reasons. Selfishly, they're just very wise. So I would ask them questions and I would learn so much, but also because, it's one thing to get somebody to lose 20 pounds. That's life-changing. But, I'll tell you a story that illustrates what I'm talking about. I had a woman that I trained that was 83 at the time, and her daughter brought her to me because she needed to improve her mobility. Well, anyway, about 6 months into our training, she walks into my studio, and we didn't have an appointment. In fact, I thought maybe I screwed up on my time. So I looked at my schedule and I said, I don't think I have an appointment with you right now. She goes, no, I just want to come in and tell you, I just went grocery shopping next door, and I closed the trunk of my car, my car by myself. She's like, I haven't been able to do that. It's like life-changing, type of stuff. And I didn't train. There wasn't a single person over the age of 70. At one point, there was quite a few clients I had that were between the ages of 70, and my oldest was 91. I trained them all once a week. That was it. One day a week. And they all saw profound benefits in their mobility and quality of life. Profound. In fact, I just quoted a study that just came out that showed that people between the ages of 75 to 90 build strength and muscle as fast as people who strength train in their 60s. Now, I think the potential is always different, right? As you get older, the potential maybe comes down. But what's my point with this? Your body will adapt. In fact, the day you die is the day your body stops its ability to adapt. It will adapt. There's also this very strong connection between mental health and wellness and muscle. In fact, strength training to date is the only form of exercise that seems to show the stop, or in this case, there was a study out of Sydney, Australia, that showed the halting of the progression of Alzheimer's. It was strength training that showed that. Now, in my opinion, I think it has to do with its insulin sensitizing effects. I think that what they call it, type 3 diabetes. I think that's probably it. I think part of it also is some of the stuff I just said with the proprioceptive training. I think it trains the brain more than other forms of exercise. But it's got remarkable effects in that way. And I remember one woman I trained, very sad story. She came to me with dementia. Her daughter hired me, another person. And, I trained her for 3 years, and you'd see her memory kind of waver a little bit, but it was somewhat stable. She was in her 80s. And then she had an accident at home and had to be bedridden for a while. It was like 3 months. And I saw her 5 months later, because after that, her daughter couldn't afford to hire me. They had to have, full-time care. I saw her 5 months later. This woman who I trained for 3 years didn't recognize me. Literally, the progression of her dementia accelerated so quickly in that 5-month period, and it was due to she couldn't exercise. She couldn't strength train anymore.
Yep. It's the central nervous system. I mean, I'm a chiropractor first and foremost before I became a naturopathic physician. Like, I'm a chiropractor at the core. So everything goes back to the CNS, and strength training, specifically heavy lifting under the guidance of a skilled individual or through a program that like the type you guys make. It's the heaviness of it. It stimulates the CNS in a very specific way that nothing else does. And that organizes, like you said, the hormones. It organizes your central nervous system. The contracting of the muscle, having control over your body and space, the proprioception, all the things you just said, is what helps keep the immune system activated and organized as well. And you cannot clear out damaged proteins. Your organelles inside your cells won't work appropriately and fire appropriately, and they won't organize appropriately if your central nervous system is all fritzed out. So it is it's non-negotiable, you guys. I think, Sal, you've just done a beautiful job of making a case for why. all the ways that I've been trying to get people to understand that strength training is non-negotiable. You guys have such incredible programs, and every time I turn around, I feel like you're launching a cool new one. You guys just launched a cool GLP-1. Can you talk more about that and tell people where to find you?
Yeah, so we offer a wide variety of workout programs for different goals and different individuals. We have like some that are, if you've never done strength training or you're a complete beginner, we have something called MAP Starter. If you're very advanced, or if you have a specific type of strength training goal, then we have those types of programs available. We just did the GLP-1 program because of, these GLP-1s are taking the world by storm, and we saw the potential abuse and negatives that could happen from people who just aren't strength training. And so we said, okay, we got to put something out there for people who are on these that can help them appropriately strength train, especially in those early stages of low calorie, that can help kind of mitigate those negatives. And that's what that was. But yeah, that's the primary thing that we do is, or the way we produce revenue is we create, like we did when we're trainers, we create workout programs, and the workout programs have the exercises and video demos, and so you know how to do it properly. And then the podcast really is about communicating these things in ways that make sense. I could speak science all day, but really what we try to do is, can we communicate this in a way that's effective, that gets people to really understand, and can we communicate the things that are important and stay away from the can we prioritize the things that need to be prioritized and stay away from the other stuff, so that people can move the big rocks first. And so that's what you hear on the show. We're trying to talk to the average person, not to a bunch of other fitness fanatics like ourselves.
I love that about you. I just want to compliment you on that. So many of the guys in the bro science space really are just trying to show how smart they are. And they quote studies as a way to sort of like bro science out with each other. And it really does leave a bad taste in my mouth. And you guys have such an approachable way of doing things, and people love you. Like, I've been on your show twice now, and only one episode has aired as of this recording, and people the messages I got of like, oh, thank God you were on there. They love you and they love what you're doing. And it's all middle-aged women who follow me and they love you guys for it. So you're clearly, I mean, you're all easy on the eyes. That's a, that's a given, but you break it down in a way that's really approachable and you're not trying to talk over the heads of people. And I just really appreciate that about you.
I have no interest in convincing a fitness fanatic to exercise and eat right. We want to reach the average person, and we want to talk to them about like what it's really all about, what it takes, and also doing this for the right reasons. You know, I'll leave with this. If you're exercising and eating right to chase aesthetics, you will eventually lose your health and you will lose your aesthetics. If you do them for health, if you're trying to improve the quality of life and your health, you'll gain a great deal of both. And that's really the only way to do it. So when you go to the gym, don't do it because you hate yourself. Don't do it because you hate your body. You hate the way you look. That will take you down the wrong path. Go to the gym because you care about yourself, because you're somebody that deserves to be healthy. You're somebody that deserves to be cared for. And do the same thing with your food. Eat because you love yourself. And what that usually looks like is most of the time you'll eat the things that are healthy. And every once in a while, you're going to enjoy the foods that aren't so healthy, but because you're connecting with people or you're having fun with your friends or whatever. And that's how you achieve that balance. But it feels good to do it that way. Otherwise, you're going to have this relationship with it where years ago, I heard this woman tell me, I stopped exercising and dieting because I just wanted to enjoy my life. And it hit me so hard because I can't think of anything that will improve the quality of your life more than being healthy. And then I realized she's exercising because she hates her body. She's restricting herself because she feels like she deserves to be punished. And that's the wrong way to approach this. Do this because you deserve to be cared for, because you deserve to be healthy. Approach it that way, and then you'll find the right path.
I love it. I love it, Sal. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm going to make sure all the links are in the show notes so people can go follow your excellent YouTube and your social media and subscribe to your podcast. What's the website?
It's mindpumpmedia.com.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, everybody go over there and check it out because it is a wealth of knowledge and you guys are a real gift to the world. So thank you so much for coming on and thanks for being my friend. I appreciate you.
Thank you. We love you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Dr. Tyna Show. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson and mixed by Mike Fry. Theme song is by John the Guild. You can watch the full video version of this podcast inside the Spotify app or on YouTube. As always, you can email the podcast at podcast@drtyna.com. That's DRTYNA. And if you like this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also find all of my offerings on my website at drtyna.com. For more shows by my team, go to wellnessloud.com. See you next time, and thanks for listening. This podcast is for general informational purposes only. It does not constitute the practices of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. I am a doctor, but I am not your doctor. No doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content on this podcast is intended not to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.